Let's see. All right. All right. I'm very bad in time slots, so I'll start my stopwatch now. See what happens. Yeah, please help me. And if there are any questions, please interrupt, because I'm here for you and not for myself. I still work for BNN Vara ad interim, that is called, as a head of digital. So I do the same thing as Wilco, but then for BNN Vara. And I also started from April 1st on a startup called Clever Lions. And like the introduction says, we try to make content strategy more relevant, and we like to give content jockeys, that's how we call them, relevant tools to actually see what happens on a story level when they put stories in the online domain. But first I want to show you something that we developed in BNN Vara, what made the whole thing and the whole startup actually possible. What we found out was that people are active on all sorts of different channels. This is not really new, but they are also active on very different moments in time. And the interesting thing is that when our own content jockeys were putting content on the sites or in the apps or in the second screens or whatever, that was not necessarily the time when our audiences were actually looking for our content. And so we were missing on an engagement slot, so to say. And we wanted to find out how large is actually our engagement slot. What is the time lapse on which we should actually send our story online or put it on mobile apps or whatever, in order to have the most impressions, the most engagement, the most possible way to actually start a dialogue. And what you see here is a tool that we developed. It's called a bubble graph or an impact timer, or there are all sorts of names that are being created for this. And what it shows is when were we active ourselves and when was our audience active, and did this have any interaction. And it was interesting to see, this is an old bubble graph from De Wereld Draait Door, which is our daily show, the Graham Norton show, but then in the Netherlands, on BBC One, which is called NPO 1. And we found out that there was the highest level of engagement or people looking for our content during the television show, which is, you think, yeah, of course, but it was interesting for us to find that out. And we decided to widen this and look at different brands to see how it looked. And I challenged all my content jockeys to be able to look at all these bubble graphs and tell, without the brand shown, what brand are we actually looking at. And so this is a radio show, it's called Giel. And you see it has a complete different footprint. And on different moments, there are people looking for content, and we were on different times, we were actually pushing content to all these channels. And what was interesting on Giel, and I'll tell you more about it later, is that people actually, because the show is in the morning from 6 till 10 in the morning, but people were actually looking for Giel content at the end of the day. There was no reason. There was no radio show, there was no actual engagement, no additional content. So people had Giel in their mind, they heard something on the radio, they went to work, and then at the end of the day, out of the blue, they just decided to go to the Giel site or into the Giel app and try to look for specific Giel content, which is really interesting. And we didn't know that until we had this bubble graph. And so when we developed this thing, we thought there's an interesting thing, because if you look at it and you want to actually have engagement around a certain period of time, you need to know how long is my content still relevant, and is this different for different sorts of content, and this is also different for different brands. So how long will a photograph be relevant and have an engagement power? How long does this count for video, for a share, for a status update? And so we figured out how that worked. And we started to combine these two tools. Because if you want to interact with your audience with video, when you know they are active at 7 o'clock, you don't have to in the evening, then don't put it at 10 o'clock in the morning on the website. Because then it will lose its engagement power, and there will be no connection, and it just misses out, because it will be pushed away in the timelines, and then nobody will notice it. So this was really interesting and powerful, because it actually worked. And so we did this for Giel, we did it for all our big brands, and you see also, depending on the brand, depending on the content, depending on the audience, depending on the time, there's all these different levels of engagement value related to different kinds of content. And then we decided, okay, that's interesting. And now we want to know how relevant are certain channels for us. How does that work for certain brands? Is Facebook more relevant for engagement or for loyalty or for cross-navigation or for reach or for sharing? And how does that count for our own domains? And how does it count for YouTube, Twitter, and all the other social domains? And so we made a channel value indicator. That's how we called it. And we tried to figure out how does it work. And then with all these 3 tools, our content jockeys were able to actually start to really jockey with their content. Because now they knew my video will be relevant for 2 hours if I put it on an app during the day. And if my engagement value is really high around 5 o'clock for a brand like Giel, then I should be there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I should start playing with that. And what you see here is how we did that for a talk show. It's called Pauw en Witteman. It doesn't exist anymore because meneer Witteman is way too old. And when you see the ditch between the 22nd and the 34th week, it's called summer holiday. So you see the relevance of television during the summer. And the thing you see on the left of the graph is when we didn't work with all these tools, and on the right you see when we started to use these tools. And you see that the unique browsers per week, they went up real high. So when we had an average reach of 70,000 before we did it, it went up to almost 140,000, 150,000 with huge peaks over 200,000 unique browsers every week. Just because we knew when to put out our content, what content we should use, and on what channel we wanted to bring it to. So that was really, really powerful. And we brought it to all our different media brands, and we figured out, okay, so now let's see if we can figure out if we, for example, on Twitter, start to use a different kind of content strategy, put out different sorts of content on a different time and see what happens. And you see how it changes. So this is old. You see lots of stuff going on Twitter during the day, not much of engagement, and then we started to bring it to a later state, and there was much more engagement and much more relevance because of the fact that we just brought it to a different time to Twitter in different forms. Okay, so we figured out how does that translate to life cycle, for example, for a tweet. Well, in the old way, we did it. We just did something. It was relevant for about 20 minutes, and then we almost doubled it to over 35 minutes. It stayed relevant. Just a single tweet, just by looking at the audience, looking at the channel, looking at the timing, and looking at the content. And so we did this for all sorts of different channels, and we all grew, except for direct and except for search. So that was interesting. So we cannibalized a little bit on traditional way of finding content. And all the other channels, we made it bigger. And the last one, for the ones who don't speak Dutch, it says all the others. So that's like a container thing. And I'm not sure what it was, but we also weren't very good on that. But that is explainable because we were so much better on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, for example. So that was really powerful. Now, for the Giel app, because I showed you already that we were experimenting on Giel on specific ways, we've created an app on Giel, and we saw something really interesting in Giel. Like I said, there was lots of engagement during the night, and not during the moment that Giel is actually live during the radio show. And so we've created an app, and this is just fun, because we need video. And it shows what the app is all about.
Het is Happy Tuesday of Happy Tuesday. De lancering van de Giel app is in feite de vernieuwde app. Goedemorgen. Eens even kijken wat ik allemaal binnenkrijg. Goedemorgen. Dat is een man, ja, dat was Mendel van Giethuizen. Zet je kosten.
Goeie ontwikkeling dit. Leuk toch?
Ja, ik vind het super grappig.
Nog iets sexier, mama. Goedemorgen. Kijk eens nou eens.
Ja, die snappen het wel, ja. Robin Robijns. Die doet echt bij van de Gaande Goedemorgen content.
Elke singer-songwriter van de beste singer-songwriter zal ik doen. Stemmen kan in de Giel-app. Ja, want het is Happy Tuesday vandaag. Ook dat is vandaag, de dag dat de update voor de Giel-app gelanceerd is. En die kan je foto's sturen en geluid en al die optredens beluisteren en zo.
Yeah, I know, but it's you fix it possible. And I wonder, maybe if I get to move by you once more, maybe you look into my eyes and you'll see it. Just watch it out today, girl. I want for you, you don't want for me. It's something like the way you move that body, for real. And the reason is to say.
Okay, so we've built this app, and first thing we thought we should enlarge the engagement power during the show and see if we can actually bring people back to the time slot when Giel is actually broadcasting and see if they can start to engage with us during the show. Well, this really worked. And we got some real nice figures, like you can see here, so we're bragging about it. But what was more interesting, the level of engagement during the show went up, but still the level of engagement at night also went up. And we're like, why? Why do these people keep on looking for Giel content during the evening? We just couldn't figure it out. Finally, we found out that it's mostly because they listen to special songs, live music that they want to listen to when they actually at home, or they want to show it to their spouse or whatever. Oh, I heard this on the radio, and now I know where to find it. And then they start look to the content together. But we also found out that they actually want more Giel in their normal life. And so what we did, it's true, we've created a new app show. So what we did is we just looked at the content, looked at the behavior, looked at what people did in the app, and we've created a complete new content. It's called the Giel XL, and we create every day an extra radio show who is specially made for all the app users, and it's app only, and it's just a very, very small 2-minute, 3-minute radio show with additional content, additional music, and just stuff that he's not able to put in the radio show during the morning. He puts it in the Giel XL, and all sorts of new stuff comes from that. New formats, new radio programs, new television shows, and all sorts of new content that we just use specifically in the app. So that's really nice. We won 2 Spin Awards, so we were like completely crazy that it actually got noticed in the market. All right, so I grabbed all this knowledge. Thanked BNN Vara for giving me the playground, and I decided to put it in a startup. It's called Clever Lions, and what we do, we help media organizations and content marketers to build a more effective content strategy with creativity, supported with data. So we're not really a data-driven organization. We're a creative organization that use data to become more creative. And we're building a Smart Octo. That's the name of a tool, a dashboard, that is a solution for more online impact. And the problems that we try to solve, and this is probably very noticeable for everyone who works in the online domain and creates content, data is all in silos and it's always incomplete. Data is dead because when you look at data, it's always from yesterday or the week before, and it's not actionable, it's not real time, it's never ever story or KPI driven. No one thinks about what do I actually want to do with this story? How much reach do I want? How much commands do I want to get? How much engagement do I want to get with this story, with this video, with this photograph? And no one will look at it if it's actually successful. Like the question here was, how do you metric things? That's exactly the problem. There's nobody ever thinking about the metrics on beforehand. Nobody cares. We just put it out there, and then we'll see what happens. And so that's a big problem because there's way too much content online, and we're putting way too much content online every day, and we just keep on doing that. We do the same thing at BNN Vara. And so we try to solve this. And the problem is data is very, very boring, especially pie graphs and all these graphs. And, you know, you look at all these peaks and, you know, it's not really fun. not for an alpha guy like me. So, excuse the Dutch, but say you publish a story and you want to know how the story is actually doing. If you open Google Analytics, you'll see this. This is a complete flatliner. So the moment you've actually created a story and you ask Google Analytics to tell you how your story is actually behaving, this is what Google Analytics will tell you. It's not doing anything. And it takes 2 days to give you this. 2 days, I mean, I think 99% of all the stories that are out there, they don't have a time span of 2 days. Especially it's not when it's a small video or a photograph or just a tweet, whatever. So this is pretty useless. Because what you want is this. You want to know the moment you publish a story, you want to track and trace it real time on all channels. You want to know on all the channels how it's working. Should I be on all these channels? Can I get more from it if I put it on another channel? Should I, if there's lots of engagement, can I create new content on the same channel? Should I actually consider to have a boosted post on Facebook? Should I actually pay for extra views or extra engagement? Is that worth the effort or not? Depending on the KPIs and the reason why you actually put it out there. Oh, sorry. And when you see that, because this is actually the prototype that we're running right now at the VRT, which is the public broadcaster in Belgium. Here you see the impact, real time, what happens if you put an extra Facebook post on the same story that you already run on your own homepage. And you see the immediate impact that it has. And so you can actually start to interact with this content and decide if you want to put it on Twitter, if you want to look at the story more specifically and create additional content, like I said. And it becomes a way of actually start talking to your fellow content jockeys of what is actually going on with my story. And have you ever seen a peak like this? And what did you do? And that's exactly what we trying to achieve, that people start to communicate with one another in order to make content production more fun, but also to make it more relevant and learn from the things that are actually real-time happening. Here you see, for example, the impact of the night. And what is really interesting, if it's siloed data, the night will give you the information that your story is dead. But it doesn't have to be dead at all. It's just that people are they're asleep. And so maybe, if it's a really hot topic, the next morning, by just bringing out a relevant extra or an additional photo or just a different headline, you can reanimate your story because people start to wake up. And maybe you can reach a complete new target group that you hadn't reached because they already went to sleep the moment you put your story online. For lots of news programs, the ones that BNNVARA has, for example, is from the 11 till 12 at night. Lots of people are already asleep. But in the morning, maybe they want to know all the headlines. But from the graphs you get from Google Analytics, you'll decide all these stories are dead. But that's because they give you the impact of the night. Here you can see how a Facebook posting can actually reanimate a story, like I said, and take your story through the night and make it more relevant, which is interesting to think of. And of course, you want practical lists and notifications, and so you don't want this. This is what you get from Google Analytics. But you want this. You want nice, clean graphs that will show you on a story level what is going on. Is this an interesting thing? Everybody wants to look at this story right away, because that's an interesting graph. Something is going on there. All the other ones are not really interesting, but you want to look at that story. And so what we did is, we also created a way of communicating. So the tool will actually tell you what is going on, and you can start to communicate with people who are in your team or people that create content. For example, at the VRT for Sportza, which is a large sport brand, they have a complete content team that works on cycling, or a content team that works on soccer. Am I, yeah? Oh, unfortunate. Okay, anyway, so this is what you want. And this is what it looks like right now. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Bart.
Yes.
can read that?
Yeah, I already noticed.
All right, good. I come from an email marketing background, and we used to do a little bit of the same things. You send out an email with very testing everything in there. You got the data immediately in front of you.
Yeah.
So, apart from the fact that it looks really good and I think it's really useful, what difference do you bring in the market? Do you have competition, for instance? Because you refer to Google Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
But again, within email marketing, we use a whole set of other tools.
Yeah, of course. Well, the big thing, the big difference that we bring is that we do it on omni-channel. That's the first thing. So I look over all the channels. The second thing is that we make it actionable, real time. So you can actually do something about it right now. And the third thing is that we try to bring it by dialogue and not by graphs. So we don't let you interpret a graph, so like, okay, what should I do? But the tool will actually give you actionable suggestions on maybe you should post it on Facebook right now. Or we see lots of stuff going on the commenting and it has negative sentiment. Maybe you should take a look. Or this KPI has reached, you decided you wanted 50,000 views. You've already reached it within 10 minutes. I think you should consider a branded post. So it will bring you real-time suggestions to improve your content strategy over all the channels. So that's a big difference.
Your let's say, your big clientele that you want, is it broadcasting companies, newspapers?
Yeah, exactly. So we have our clients now are VRT, BNN-Vara. We're talking to the NOS and the NPO, but we're also talking to Philips because they want to try out something in the UK for branded content that they do with publishers by storytelling with branded content. We talk to lots of publishers. They want to use this, and in a few weeks we'll probably fly across the big ocean to talk to a very large media company.
Three questions. Sorry.
3 questions. Whoa.
Yes, thanks. It sounds interesting. You talk about it very enthusiastically, which is very nice. But I was wondering, these are all numbers, so it's a very quantitative data about people's engagement. So I'm wondering about the quality of their engagement. Like, what are the things they are engaging with, and how are they engaging?
Yes. Excellent question. There's a big problem. We were discussing this before during dinner. What does a like mean? What does a share? How does it relate to one another? A view versus a comment. What do I like anyway? I mean, do I like something because I like a certain person who asked me to like something? Or do I like something because I can win a Mitsubishi? Or do I like it because I'm really connected to a story? And how does it relate to one another? And that's exactly the problem that we were trying to solve. We don't know. The only thing that we do know is that the ones who are putting out the stories probably know it a lot better. And if they don't know it, they shouldn't put it out there because there's lots of content out there.
Do you know if they do research into that, for example? Do they try to find out how people engage? Because they can have an idea about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just intuition, that doesn't tell you anything. So do you know if there's any research around that?
No, I'm not. I don't know. At BNN-Vara, we're always guessing, to be quite honest, and we only try to broaden, like Wilco said, broaden the brand extension on all different domains. And sometimes you see, whoa, here's something going on. Like if a minister says something about the flight problem, it'll go berserk online. Okay, this is connected. People. They want to know this story, and sometimes nothing is happening. But we don't know if this is because it's wrong timing, wrong channel, wrong form. And because we create so much content, we don't have the time to look at it. See, the thing is, Google Analytics, for example, only keeps the data for 3 months. So we were working at VRT, and one of the guys asked us, how did we actually do it on Twitter last year for the cycling thing for Parijs-Roubaix? They didn't know. There is no data about it. They cannot learn anything from what they've done so far. So every single day is a new way of making the same mistakes. But that's a really good question. And the only thing I could say is talk about it. Think about it beforehand and make sure you put KPIs on the stories that you put online, and let the tool like this or a different tool, I don't care, make the decisions for you, and learn from it. But that's not an answer to your question. Okay. And then we'll do it in Dutch. Which way? You had 3 questions.
3 questions, actually. First of all, is there such thing as predictive analysis for the storylines?
Yep. And maybe we should even go to prescriptive analysis.
And second question that comes out of it, do you have an API for it if you do so?
Yes. And the third question, is it already available? No.
The third question is, if you actually connect it, how do you know if certain content should be brought back to the owned and operated channel more so than in social?
Sorry, come again?
Because you mentioned that for here,
Yep.
you decided to go owned and operated routes.
Yep.
So basically an app more so than sticking to social
The website or social media. Yeah.
What made you come up with this decision, and was it based on the data?
Okay, that's a good question. There are 2 answers. There's an honest answer and there's a political answer. Okay, which one do you want? No, the thing is, we have a very strange, we're in a strange situation in the Dutch broadcasting. Because we have all these broadcasting companies, KRO-NCV is one of them, BNN-VARA is one of them, NOS is one of them, and they all want to bring their own story and want to be relevant and bring content to their own audiences on channels that they want to decide on themselves. But you don't always get the possibilities, nor the budget, nor the channels to actually start to communicate with your target groups. And you have all these umbrella brands that overrule specific broadcasting brands. For example, Giel is part of 3FM, and 3FM is like a pop music radio station. What wants to collect all the content of all these single programs on the pop radio station. And they have their own app. And I don't want to put Giel content in their app because I want to communicate with my audience and not with an umbrella audience. So I want to have real engagement with my own listeners and not with a collection of listeners, because I'm not interested in cross-navigating to all sorts of different radio programs. I'm interested in widening the brand of Giel. So that's why we created an app. And if it's the right decision, we don't know, but we wanted to find out if we could get more engagement by making the radio show actually mobile and real-time engaging.
Was it dictated by a chance that you can actually charge premium on such channel as to advertisers?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay. Going this route, did it make it more attractive to the advertisers? I mean, like, did advertisers jump on this?
Yeah, it would be lovely if we could have advertisers, but we're a public a broadcasting company, so we can't go into the commercial possibilities. And yes, there are lots of people who want to have this tool or want to have ads in the tool. We actually are trying to, we'll probably sell it to the Norwegian public company, the Giel app. So we do have commercial deals, but then within the EBU, the European broadcasting companies.
You didn't answer my question about predictive analysis, actually.
If this is predictive analysis?
Do you
Yeah, what we do is we have listeners. We have a tool called BlueConic, for example, who makes personalization possible and tracks and makes segmenting, can start to segment on specific target groups. And we know we have algorithms on recommendation that we know within certain target groups and within certain segments, we can actually serve specific content in relation to things that you look for or what you engage with. Yep, so that's what we do.
Okay, thanks, Joseph.
Thank you. Oh yeah.